Welcome back to Counterpoint. We have our current events panel, and joining me again is Brock Stephenson and Hannah Salamon-Vegh, both political commentators. We're going to shift gears now and talk about something that I found somewhat amusing, very bizarre for certain. Google has a AI platform called Gemini, and there seems to be some issues when they were rolling this out, so much so that there was public outlash and they had to claw it back. Brock, why don't you start us off and tell us what happened here?
So Google Gemini AI is an AI system that, among other things, can create pictures, and it had a very tough time creating pictures of anyone that was of white skin, whether it was Henry Ford or the fathers of the United States. They seem to always have a bit darker pigmentation or weren't men, and they really struggled. The Wall Street Journal had one example that asked, who's done more harm, libertarians or Stalin? And the chat bot responded, it's difficult to say. And I don't know if that's a conservative joke or a left-wing joke, but it's probably not funny.
I'm sorry, and I'm laughing. My father escaped communism, for Pete's sakes. I mean, 100 million people were killed under communism in 20th century. That's absurd. I'm laughing because it is so absurd. Hannah, what is going on here? Like, what is the thinking behind this? Obviously, someone had to go behind the scenes and make these algorithms to produce this.
Yes, AI is often touted as being an unbiased, source of information, gathering from many different places online. But we're seeing, the bias of the programmers, of Google itself. A former Google search engineer wrote on Twitter saying that it's embarrassingly hard to get Google Gemini to acknowledge that white people exist. The main issue is that they were releasing historically inaccurate images of people. So someone would type in, Abraham Lincoln, or they would want different images of historical people, and they would come up all dark skinned. We need proper historical representation of people, not inaccurate representation.
So is this like critical race theory?
Yes, it's Marxism. It's Marxism.
But I'm trying to think, what would the objective be? Is it to rewrite history? I mean, obviously Abraham Lincoln was a white man. That's what we've seen his portraits. They hang in the National Gallery in America. Why would we want to change his skin color? Hannah?
Well, it's so confusing because they even have Black Nazi soldiers as well, which is completely erroneous. So they seem to be very confused, just generally, like, oh, we're going to have all darker skinned people. They pulled it, and hopefully they will get it right this time.
Brock, is this one of the concerns we have now as we enter these new murky waters of AI, that people will be going to Google, as we previously have, and expecting it to be like accurate and factual? But now there's clearly some kind of bias at play here, or some kind of strange algorithm. How much trust can we have in something like this?
There'll be limited trust. I think Google's challenge is they're trying to dominate AI, and their competitors are going to take advantage of this vulnerability and try and position them so that Google doesn't dominate AI the way it dominated search. Nate Silver commented that there were 7 fundamental principles that guided it, and objective truth isn't one of them. And I think that's part of the challenge that Google has, that they've been so dominant at everything they've touched, from search to email, that they think they're going to be good at AI, and their wokeness has taken over and limited their ability to dominate this part of the internet. And I think that they're going to be suffering as their competitors take advantage of their weakness while they reposition and figure out how to get white people into their image search, I guess.
Okay, let's shift gears to perhaps another woke issue. There was International Women's Day, obviously, March 8th. We were all excited for that. Well, there was a UK professor who was called here to Canada to speak at an event by the Justice Department, but she was suddenly canceled. Hannah, what happened?
Yeah, Alice Sullivan, she's a professor of sociology at the University College London. She was set to speak at the online to the Canadian Department of Justice for a Women's Day event last week, talking about the problems with prioritizing self-described gender data over biological sex, which we see in Canada. That's what's happening now, where they're prioritizing only gender data information instead of, issues and concerns around biological sex and the importance of, women's only spaces, things like that. Anyway, so she gave the government her slides, and then they immediately called her afterwards and said, sorry, we're canceling it. So again, not very pro-women of them, and disappointing, because we need more conversations on these issues and then not less.
I think it's rich. Brock, you can chime in here, but I think it's rich. So a woman gets canceled from a women's event. This is this is where we're at now as a society.
It probably is. Well, at least one Liberal MP had a person that had transitioned from a man to a woman as the guest speaker at their women's event this year. So women can get canceled. I think the bigger issue is how much data the government's collecting in its census surveys. And I think that that is part of society's big problem.